All right, we'll get started. Hello and welcome to our webinar, Scaling Jenkins in the Enterprise. My name is Alyssa Tong and I'm with CloudBees. Today's webinar is presented by CloudBees, the Jenkins Enterprise experts and the leading provider of the Jenkins solutions for continuous integration and continuous delivery. Next slide, please. Our presenter for today is Cyril Leclerc, Product Manager at CloudBees. Cyril will discuss with you how to scale Jenkins in the enterprise while providing flexibility to project teams. You will learn how Jenkins Operations Center by CloudBees could help to improve scalability, security, and optimization within your infrastructure. Also on hand is Tracy Kennedy, our solutions architect, who will be answering your questions throughout today's webinar. Next slide. Before I pass it over to Cyril, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping points. Today's webinar is being recorded and we'll send out the recording to everyone who registered. If you have any questions, please feel free to input them in the Q&A window throughout the presentation. Tracy will answer them in real time. Any questions that we don't get to, we will cover it after the presentation if time allows, or we will cover it in our follow-up email. So at this point, I will hand it over to Cyril.
Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening according to your time zone. Thank you very much for joining us for this 60-minute presentation. Please let me first introduce you CloudBees, who we are. We are the premier provider of Jenkins CI and continuous delivery services and support. What does it mean? What do we do with Jenkins? What we do is that we optimize Jenkins for the enterprise. We provide solutions around Jenkins. We have two main products that you can install, Jenkins Operations Center and Jenkins Open Source, Jenkins Enterprise. We will cover them today. In addition to this product, we contribute a lot to the Jenkins Open Source community. We have many committers who contribute to Jenkins and to its plugin. We provide enterprise class features and plugin as part of our solutions. As I said, we are committers and we provide patches to the Jenkins project. With our consulting partners and our training partners, we offer trainings around Jenkins. And we also organize Jenkins conferences, user conferences. Maybe we have met already. We organize some in the West Coast, on the East Coast, in Europe, recently in Berlin, and in Israel. And we also publish a Jenkins newsletter. So as a bottom line, we are the Jenkins Enterprise experts. What makes CloudBees special about Jenkins? Few more details. Maybe you know Kosuke Kawagashi is a creator of Hudson and then of Jenkins, and he's a community lead of Jenkins, and he is our CTO, our Chief Technical Officer. He works on Jenkins Open Source and as well on the products that we offer to our customer and that I will cover today. We contribute to the Jenkins community and we provide an enterprise class approach to Jenkins where we also have a lot of expertise on scalability, which is our subject today, and we maintain the largest Jenkins installation worldwide. This is our cloud offering. We have several dozens of thousands of Jenkins masters that we maintain on the cloud for our customers. And we provide two styles of offering: on-premises software that you install in your organization behind your firewalls, or our solution as a service in the cloud, Jenkins as a service. So we support you for any type of Jenkins and CI project. An overview of our solutions. As I said, 3 families on-premise. On-premise, we have 2 products, Jenkins Enterprise and Jenkins Operations Center. Then on the cloud, we call it Dev at Cloud. It's Jenkins on the cloud, our cloud-based solution where you consume Jenkins operated by our engineers. And then an hybrid approach where you can have your Jenkins master managed by CloudBees engineering team on the cloud, and also some Jenkins slaves, Jenkins resources in your private data center for special needs. Or you can also do the other style, which is to have the Jenkins master on most of the Jenkins slaves in your private data center, on some offload resources, offload slaves in the cloud on CloudBees Dev at Cloud platform. So no matter how you use Jenkins, we are here to provide a solution. This was a quick presentation of CloudBees. Now let's jump into our subject today, our problem statement, how to scale Jenkins. What does it mean to scale Jenkins in an organization? How do I scale Jenkins from, let's say, 10 jobs to 1,000 jobs, from 10 projects to 1,000 projects, with the whole project that we continue to maintain, 1,000 is not a crazy number. And also, how do I scale from 10 users to 1,000 users? 1,000 may be a lot, but when I integrate dev people, ops people, and QA people in a continuous delivery approach with continuous delivery pipelines, this makes a lot of users. So how do I scale Jenkins like this? And how can I scale Jenkins complying with corporate rules? Organization requires security, require audit, high availability. There are several constraints when software becomes mission critical. Some processes become critical in organization. On how can I comply? Can I make my Jenkins infrastructure compliant with these rules when I scale? On how can I combine these rules, these corporate rules, with the flexibility that I want to continue to offer to my project team. They want to do agile things, and I want to offer this as a Jenkins person. So this is my problem today. This is what we are going to cover today. Let's discuss about a typical Jenkins installation. So what it looks like. Typically, I start Jenkins with 5 projects. It's just a team who download Jenkins open source from jenkinsi.org. They install the Jenkins web app on a desktop. We don't have slaves, on it runs, on it doing a good job, and people are happy. And then I have to scale maybe to 25 projects. I add more slaves, let's say 5 slaves. Then I want to be used widely in my organization. I jump to 75 projects to 50 slaves, which becomes more difficult. And then comes 150 projects, 400 slaves, things like this, and it grows, it grows, it grows. And I may touch a limit with this, and I don't know how long it can work like this. And so my first approach is vertical scaling. Vertical scaling, we are used to it. We have discovered this with mainframes a long time ago, but vertical scaling has a limit because we cannot, hardware resources have limits. I cannot add more than 64 CPUs in a server, and it's incredibly expensive. And I have another issue that it becomes a single point of failure as all my teams work on it. So as a Jenkins admin, I become scared and I do not accept any changes, any upgrades of version. And then I lose the flexibility and the agility that my project teams enjoy with Jenkins. So vertical scaling is limited, and it may cause many pains in my organization. So another approach, I know that I can do vertical scalability or horizontal scalability. And here at CloudBees, we used to say that more than an horizontal scalability, what we've seen with our customer is that it's more a viral approach. where many project teams download their Jenkins for their team, and they install it on a desktop, and then it becomes a big mess because I have dozens of Jenkins masters everywhere in my organization, and I see problems such as hardware resource limits because everybody wants to have his slaves, but my slaves are not used a lot, or my data center is full. So I would like to do something which is to share slaves between teams. Let's imagine that I have 3 teams in my organization, team A, team B, and team 3 with their masters. How can I share a slave when a slave of the team A is not used? How can I give it to team B that may need it, and so on? So this is a constraint for infrastructure people, how to optimize the usage of my hardware, of my servers. Another challenge with horizontal scalability is security. It's very easy to install Jenkins and to not enable security. And then everybody can access to my Jenkins master. And if I can access to the Jenkins master, I can access to the workspace where I can explore the source code, which may be something I don't want in my organization. And maybe unexpected people will trigger jobs or modify jobs if I do continuous delivery, where I automate deployments on QA or staging or pre-production environment. I may want to secure this. So with when I scale Jenkins, I want to keep security under control. This will be an important challenge. This will be also very important when I will want to transition from continuous integration to continuous delivery involving more teams. So 2 big challenges scaling Jenkins horizontally: how to optimize hardware resources and how to deal with security. If you have other challenges, please ask questions. Maybe Tracy, my colleague, will be able to answer live, or maybe it will deserve a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. So let's discuss about scaling Jenkins. The first rule that first I will give you the answer, what I will present today. What I will present today is a scenario where I will use several Jenkins masters. You can see them here on the right part of my slide, Jenkins Enterprise Master 1 to Jenkins Enterprise Master N. So many Jenkins masters scale out the horizontal approach. I will manage and federate these Jenkins masters with a CloudBees product called Jenkins Operations Center that will manage security globally in my organization. So I will declare security once with an LDAP server, let's say, declare role-based access control on all my resources, have single sign-on enabled on all my Jenkins master at once to secure different profile of people, dev people, QA people, ops people, admins also. I will share hardware. I will have some shared slaves that you can see on the left part of my slide, but I will also have some teams, some projects. We will have some dedicated slaves because they have special requirements and I want to be flexible. And I will manage version upgrades of Jenkins plugins and Jenkins apps with an enterprise update center. And I will use a testing environment to validate all this before performing upgrades. So this is the global reference architecture that I unveil now, that I will describe during my presentation. First rule to scale Jenkins in the organization is to have general purpose multi-tenant slaves. How can I share slaves between teams, between projects, on optimize hardware resources, on keep a reasonable number of slaves if each slave is specific, because each slave has been tuned and customized by different project teams. And so here I will have several rules. First, I do not build on the master. The Jenkins master is just the orchestration web application. It's not the place where I build application for several reasons. One is resources. builds may consume a lot of CPU, a lot of memory, and I don't want to hurt my Jenkins master with this, so I will run it on another box. And the other reason is security. A Jenkins build is untrusted code, and I don't want me as a Jenkins admin to have untrusted, unknown code that will run with the same Linux or Windows user on my box that runs the master. So first rule, no build on the master. The master is not a slave. I use dedicated build servers for slaves. Then I will try my best to limit the variety of slaves to maximize sharing. If possible, I will just have 3 families of slaves: Linux slaves, Windows slaves, and macOS slaves. If you think about build tools such as JVMs, Maven, Gradle, tools like this, Jenkins is able to automatically install them on your build slave when needed. So you may not have requirements to pre-install these build tools on your build slave. And this helps to keep general purpose slaves. Another key point on general multi-tenant slave is to not store credentials on the slave. This is frequently Git SSH keys. It can also be certificates to sign iPhone application with your Apple developer profile, or it can be secrets to access databases and so on. We will detail this later, but please do not store credentials, secrets, passwords, certificates on the slave. There is a service in Jenkins to do this. Once I have my general purpose multi-tenant slaves, many of you are already familiar with this feature in Jenkins. I will use labels in Jenkins. So on my slave, I will specify a label such as Linux, Windows, macOS that will identify the type, the family of my build slave. And then I can specify the usage strategy, use slave as much as possible, or just use this slave for this specific label. Typically, what I do, and we can debate on this, I say that Linux slave is use it as much as possible. On special slaves such as macOS slaves, on Windows slave, I will tie them to this family of jobs, to this level of jobs only. But this can be different in different organizations. So this is how I configure the slave with the label. And then on my job, I just have a simple checkbox to say restrict where this project can be run. And I have my label expression, and Jenkins provide me auto-completion with a nice UI feedback. This was my first recommendation to scale Jenkins. Let's now move to security. Security is key to have a multi-tenant infrastructure, to have many project teams sharing the same Jenkins infrastructure. If I cannot isolate team one from the other, then I will not be able to have a global Jenkins infrastructure, and I will stay with my tiny Jenkins masters that are not under control. Key subject today to secure Jenkins: authorization and authentication, storing secrets and credentials, isolating teams with roles, and isolating build slaves. The first one is to enable authentication. So by default, Jenkins authentication is not enabled. And the community is thinking about adding a wizard at the start of Jenkins to recommend you to enable security. It can be quite simple. So you go on the Configure Global Security panel, you activate your security realm. There are many plugins as part of the Jenkins community, open source or commercial features to connect to various security realms. You can connect, the most popular one are Active Directory, LDAP, on the Jenkins on user database, but there are many others. We recently had the addition of SAML v2 authentication. So here you choose your security realm. And then you can choose your authorization strategy. There are various implementation as part of the open source Jenkins community. And we in CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise will provide a role-based access control strategy that I will use today to illustrate how to secure Jenkins. So this was the second rule, enable security on authentication. On here, a benefit of Jenkins Operations Center, the solution by CloudBees to federate, to orchestrate all your Jenkins master, is to be able to have a global top-down security configuration where you just configure security on Jenkins Operations Center, and then you force every connected master, we call them client master, you force security on them so that you are sure as a Jenkins admin and as a process person that security is enabled on your CI infrastructure. Then another point, another rule is storing secrets, credentials, passwords. So a solution, it's quite common when we start using SSH, is to store the SSH private keys on the file system, on the Linux file system with under the .ssh folder. But there are many problems. It's very difficult to secure, and it's quite difficult to integrate with several Jenkins plugins. When now you have a Jenkins credential service, so you can see my screenshot on this slide, where you can easily store SSH keys, of course, maybe to do SSH access to remote servers, maybe for deployment, or maybe for Git access. You can store also login password. It can be for Git HTTPS. It can be to connect to a database. It's convenient when you have a QA team that want to reinitialize a database in a testing environment. You can also store Apple developer profile, which is important for iPhone developers. You can store X509 certificates, SSL certificates, and if your need is not met by this feature, you always have the secret text on the secret file that you can use. You store it in the global credentials. They are encrypted in Jenkins, and then you can use it in your plugins. And this makes your Jenkins master and Jenkins slave much more multi-tenant. Another point is that you can configure these credentials at the global level shared by all the jobs of your Jenkins master. This can be an issue, or you can declare them at the folder level, and I will show you how you can combine this folder level declaration of secrets with Jenkins, the role-based access control plugin by CloudBees. Let's now take a scenario. I want to isolate teams, and I will do it with Jenkins role-based access control plugin. So I have a mobile team in my organization. I have a web team in my organization. The web team has web jobs. The mobile team has mobile jobs. The mobile team also has its secrets, its credentials, maybe iPhone, Apple developer profile, or so on. And I don't want any visibility at all between the teams. And I have an admin team that sees everything. I could do a more complex demo with role-based so that the mobile dev people have different permission from the QA validation mobile people and from the ops people of the mobile team. But today we will limit to this scenario. So two teams, mobile team, web team, with different sets of projects on an admin team that can see everything. So I will quickly show you this on my local Jenkins Enterprise by CloudBees. So here, if you can see on my screen, I have three folders in which I group my project: the admin folder, the mobile folder for the mobile team, and the web folder for the web team. So if I look at the web folder, I have all the web jobs and so on. On the admin team, I have some maintenance jobs such as backups and things like this. So I want my different people to be to have different permission on these groups. Let's go now on how I group people. For this demo, I will not use the LDAP authentication. I will use the mock security realm, which is very convenient for education and training. I will say that I have 4 users, Bas, Cyril, John, and admin. And each of them is associated with an LDAP group. So there is a mobile LDAP group, the web LDAP group, and the admin LDAP group. Now I will show you the magic. I will connect with a second browser and I will connect as Cyril. And Cyril is a web developer. I am not a mobile person. Cyril is me. So I should not see the admin jobs and I should not see the mobile jobs. So here I did it. If you remember, this is the permission. Oops, sorry, it's moving too fast. This I access Jenkins with the admin profile. I can see all the groups, all the folders, everything. Here I am connected with the user Cyril of the web team, and I can only see the web jobs. How do I do this? I do it with role-based access control. And so here you can see that I declared a web group, which is a Jenkins group called web group, which is associated with the LDAP group, web LDAP group. And then I say that this group has the role develop. And develop is a proposed role by CloudBees, where we have many permissions. I will show you here the matrix of permission, where you can have fine-grained security. For example, on a new job, you can define who is able to create, delete, configure, read, discover, build, and so on. So my develop group role, has many permission of jobs, but it does not have many permission on the Jenkins master itself, on the slave itself. I could also create a QA role with just read and execute access to jobs and so on. So this was an important part of the security of my Jenkins deployment, is to have different groups of people with different permissions on the jobs. So I group the jobs by folder, and now I have to show you how I isolate secrets, because the mobile team has an iOS Apple developer profile certificate that I don't want to share with the web team. So here I will show you the credential service in Jenkins. You can see it on the navigation menu. I have my global credentials, but here I don't have my Apple developer credentials. So I will go in the mobile project in the iOS folder. On here, I can define credentials. Oh, no, there is something weird. Yeah, here. Sorry, no, it's a demo effect. Yeah, it's defined here. So here in the mobile folder, I can define credentials. And here you can see that I have my Git user, and I can also, my Git permission for the mobile team. I can also add an Apple developer profile. So it's my So here I could show you how to declare permissions at the folder level, credentials at the folder level, so that it's not visible for the other teams. And here I have succeeded in isolating my different teams, which means to isolate the team one from the other. One team cannot see the jobs of the other team, or maybe cannot run them. And then I can also isolate the secrets, because the password, the certificates of the mobile team must not be shared with the web team. It can also apply to software licenses and so on. Let me continue now. How to isolate build slaves. So we discussed earlier the idea that some project teams will have dedicated slaves, and I want in my organization to have many slaves that are shared by everybody, but some projects, some teams will have dedicated slaves, maybe because there are software licenses on them, or because there are special secrets that I had to install on the slave. I could not, for a reason or another, use the Jenkins credential service. And here with Jenkins Enterprise by CloudBees, I have the ability to attach a slave to a folder and to say this slave can only be used by this folder. So here, what I do is, let's imagine I will go with another infrastructure. Here is a mobile team. On this Jenkins server, I declare a node, which is a very specific WebEx slave. And I will say this slave can only be used on this master by the mobile team. And here I have this feature on the left of my screen that is a control slave. Oh, it's not here, sorry. It's one level under. The control slave, where I can attach a slave with a folder. I can create a request. You could experience this. And then I can see that when I visualize my slave here, WebEx slave1 bishop.org, there is just one single approved folder, so it will only run for jobs on this folder, and it will not run on any other folder. I can attach folders or I can attach project jobs. But what I usually like is to have this folder-oriented approach, which makes it quite simple to understand. So this was another key feature to scale Jenkins in my enterprise, in my organization, and to have a multi-tenant infrastructure, is to be able to isolate and dedicate some slaves to some teams. Now that I have prepared everything, all my infrastructure to be multi-tenant friendly, I will be able to share slaves, to share hardware between masters and between teams. And to do it, I will use Jenkins Operations Center, which is CloudBees' solution to manage groups of Jenkins masters together. Here on this demo, I declare 1, 2 Jenkins master, and I will declare shared slaves that will be accessible to any of these masters. Here on my screenshot, you have the slave 1 and the Windows slave 1. And I will combine this with the idea of dedicated slave. So here is the idea of my special project team that need a special slave with special software installed or things like this. This is for me the opportunity to introduce Jenkins Operations Center by CloudBees. As you can see on this screen, this is a very standard Jenkins user interface. Jenkins, as you probably know, is a platform, is an architecture of a platform with plugins that brings features to the platform. For Jenkins Operations Center, the CloudBees engineering team reused the Jenkins platform and added some plugins so that it is very standard for you. There is no learning curve. It's the same user interface. It's the same way to install Jenkins Operations Center as a Jenkins master, same way to do backups, and so on. And here you can see that you have my two Jenkins master, Jenkins A and Jenkins B. Maybe it's different business units in your organization, different project teams. There are many reasons to organize masters and group jobs together. And I have shared slaves slave 1 on slave 2. And I continue to have dedicated slaves. I think it's on this one where the, excuse me, one second, I have, yeah, the Jenkins B has 2 dedicated slaves. One is called slave 2 and one is called OSX slave 1. I will do a quick demo where I will use a shared slave to build a project, to run a job. So here I will take my Linux build of the web team. On here, yeah, please let me show you. There is no slave declared on Jenkins A. So the Jenkins A does not have slave because the master is not a slave, is not allowed to run jobs. And I will run my Linux build, which require a general purpose Linux slave to build. So here it is started. It's in the build queue, and when I look at the Jenkins Operations Center, I will see this icon on my shared slave 1 that tells me that this slave1.bishop.org slave has been landed to the server Jenkins A to run a build. In parallel, there is a backup of my application that is running, but it's another story. On here, I can now look at the history of my jobs. It's in the French time zone, but you can see that the job has just run, and it was run on slave 1. So this was a way to illustrate how we use shared slave, and I will do a quick other demo. It's a job that require the special attached slave. On here, this job requires slave 2. Oops, sorry, it's opening the configuration screen. That may take a few seconds. And you can see here the restriction that I apply on my job is that it requires slave 2, which is the label of my build slave. And so when I run this job, it will not use the shared slave. Shared slave is not used. It will use its dedicated slave, and we can see it here. The dedicated slave is called slave 2, it's not slave 1. So this was a way to scale out Jenkins sharing the slaves. So now I have a solution where I have a multi-tenant Jenkins infrastructure where I am able to share slaves. I am first able to isolate team for security reasons. So I'm really multi-tenant, and I am able to have top-down approach on security where I declare security on Jenkins Operations Center, and it applies to everybody. So as a Jenkins CI process person, I am confident, and as a hardware infrastructure person, I am happy because I am reusing a lot my general purpose slaves. Now, when I have a large organization, a large infrastructure of Jenkins server, I need to take care of upgrades of my Jenkins servers. And here are a few recommendations. The first recommendation is that Jenkins is a software as any other software. On project team, usually have testing environment, validation environment. It should be the same for the continuous integration platform. And we strongly recommend you to have a Jenkins test environment where you install a Jenkins master with few sample jobs that illustrate the complexity of your organization, where you will be able to validate your plugin upgrades or your Jenkins upgrade. And this is very important. We strongly recommend you to have this environment. Maybe you are short in hardware resources, and you can just use virtualization to start this environment when needed when you test upgrades. Once we have prepared this testing environment, we will use a feature by Jenkins Enterprise, by CloudBees, which is the Enterprise Update Center. You are probably familiar with the Update Center. So it's a place where we update the plugins. Let me please manage Jenkins. So when you go on manage plugin, you can see, yeah, I updated all my plugins before the demo, but what plugin is available for update, what is available, what is installed. On this update infrastructure is connected to the jenkinsci.org update center. It's very convenient. We know this concept for other products such as Windows with Windows Update Center, Windows Update. People who use Red Hat Enterprise Linux know also this. So it's a very common concept, but we at CloudBees propose to introduce an enterprise update center where you as a Jenkins expert, as a Jenkins admin in your organization, you will be able to publish the versions of the plugins that have been validated in your organization. Maybe there is a new version of the Jenkins Git plugin that can be deployed in your organization, but first it would deserve a test in your testing environment. And so here at CloudBees, we propose this enterprise update center. You will connect your masters to this enterprise update center. This enterprise update center is itself in sync or connected to a public update center. It can be the jenkinsci.org update center. It can be the CloudBees update center, which has a few more validations. And so you will be able to manage and to control the upgrade of the plugins and also of the masters themselves within your organization. On a good scenario is to first validate the plugin versions on the version of the Jenkins Master web app in your testing environment, and then to promote this plugin to apply them in your enterprise update center. It's also a good practice to have two update center, one for the very expert teams who want very fresh and recent version of Jenkins plugins that you can configure to always sync with jenkinsci.org, on another update center which is more controlled by the Jenkins support team for project teams that expect more assistance on Jenkins, but we know that if we provide more support, then we often bring a consequence which is that we support less version and that we upgrade less frequently. So this will be possible for your Jenkins admin team to have this kind of flexibility. And then the goodies with a centralized Jenkins Operations Center is that you can force the update center of all your Jenkins masters at once. Managing and monitoring now. Here, it's very important to have notifications when you manage many slaves on many masters. So here, Jenkins Enterprise by CloudBees propose slave notification. You define groups of owner, and then you can receive emails when something goes wrong. With Jenkins Operations Center, we also provide this kind of notification when a Jenkins master goes down. So with this, you have notification at all levels. Then we provide, with Jenkins Enterprise, we provide monitoring dashboards. It's a bit detailed diagrams here, but you can see an aggregated view. Here I have a view of my Jenkins A on Jenkins B server, detailed view on aggregated view. And I have several types of indicators, system and JVM indicators, such as system load, garbage collectors. I have indicators on my Jenkins master web app, response time, error numbers. I have Jenkins indicators, Jenkins master indicators with the build queue, visibility on the build queue, on the usage of executors, on the build schedule rate, which helps you to discover that a job is misconfigured. And eventually you have indicators at the operation center level, which indicates you the number of Jenkins masters that are up or down, on usage of your shared resources, on visibility on your licenses. So this monitoring dashboard will be also very important for you when you scale Jenkins in your organization to keep this under control and to keep calm. So this was a set of recommendations of proposals on how to scale Jenkins in your organization. We have covered today how to combine shared slaves with a Jenkins Operations Center on some dedicated slaves for dedicated project with dedicated build nodes attached to folders or to projects to secure them. We have seen how to manage security with global security, single sign-on declared at the Jenkins Operations Center level on propagated to all the Jenkins master with single sign-on propagation of the roles, configuration of roles on the Jenkins masters to isolate teams one from the other with folders so that I can isolate jobs with fine-grained security, and also isolate credentials one from the other. We also have covered how to have a testing environment and manage your upgrades. So this was a global overview of how to scale Jenkins in the organization. I will now do a quick recap on the Jenkins products that we provided by CloudBees that we illustrated today, Jenkins Enterprise by CloudBees. So this is our enterprise plugin on support for Jenkins open source. It's a standard Jenkins open source distribution. We integrate all the community plugins of jenkinsci.org. We add enterprise plugins. I illustrated some of them today. And we bring professional support on top of all this. We bring you professional support for your Jenkins open source and for the enterprise feature that we provide by CloudBees. Many features today in Jenkins Enterprise related to high availability, large installation. I covered many of them. Ease of development with template or validated merge for dev team. Workflow coming soon. Security, role-based access control, attached slave, optimized utilization. We also have an integration with VMware, which is a much advanced scalability scenario that we could cover during another webinar. On the other key product that was key to our scalability architecture, scalable architecture today, Jenkins Operations Center. So it brings you centralized dashboard. You share resources, you can share slaves, you share your hardware, you can share security roles on realms, you can share update center to manage, to keep under control your Jenkins infrastructure. And this allows you to scale out Jenkins horizontally. So you remove the single point of failure problem that we have with the scale up approach with a super jumbo master. You can continue to offer flexibility to your project team, being generous in creating new masters when needed, on continuing to share slaves, build resources for these masters. On Jenkins Operations Center, as I covered quickly, it's nothing new for you. It's a set of plugins on a Jenkins master. You declare the slaves at the Operations Center level instead of declaring them at the master level. And you configure the security, the same security that you used to use, same LDAP, Active Directory, or any other Jenkins security that you use. You just declare it at the Operations Center level, and you benefit of single sign-on between all the masters. So the learning curve to adopt Jenkins Operations Center is small, and it's there is no big bang when you attach new masters to Jenkins Operations Center. It's just a bunch of plugins to install and to connect a configuration to connect it to the Jenkins Operations Center. This was a presentation of how to scale Jenkins in your organization. So we have 10 minutes for Q&As. I was a bit fast at the end. Sorry if I was too fast, but I wanted to have time to discuss with you and to discuss of your use cases. what's next, please go to our website. You can review the recording of the video. You can download a 30-day trial of Jenkins Operations Center by CloudBees, or a trial for Jenkins Enterprise by CloudBees, and you can follow our tutorial operationscenter.cloudbees.com. Thank you very much. I will discover the question now.
So we have about 9 minutes left. If you have any questions, please go ahead and input it into the Q&A window. And in the meantime, I know that Tracy has been covering a lot of questions. So at this time, I'm going to let Tracy cover any other questions with you, Cyril.
Thank you very much, Tracy.
That wanted to go into detail.
Tracy, are you on mute?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. The first question was, when does it make sense to scale out and add more masters? Is there a rule of thumb saying how now I should split a master into two or more masters?
Okay, so yeah, this is a common question, and unfortunately there is no super easy question, but what we could say is that it makes sense to split the workload when Jenkins gets slow, or another reason is when you have different teams who want to upgrade plugins at a different pace, at a different rhythm. So this can be a good reason to split, to introduce new master. On the technical constraint, what we've seen is that 500 slaves is often a maximum. Some people go way beyond, but it can become very tricky. So it's a bit like the sizing of a Java virtual machine. You should split when it's difficult. On one rule of thumb, few rule of thumbs, if you have different teams who need different versions of plugins, or you have plugin compatibility issues, it's a good reason to split. If you have several hundred of slaves and it becomes difficult, it's a good reason to split. Thank you, Tracy.
All right. The second one was, is there any framework, process, or checklist that you follow to ensure the consistency and security of multi-tenant slaves across multiple masters?
So here the checklist is no credentials, don't store any credentials. On another thing that we could say is that we if the slave is really multi-tenant, so it's a general purpose Linux box, that we frequently delete or create, then it's likely that it will be safe. On what we see that there is a great value in using tools like Chef, Puppet, or Ansible to create these slaves, so you can recycle them frequently and be sure that there is nothing specific on this slave. Then people are discussing about using LXC, Linux container, or Docker. On our cloud platform, we use Docker to isolate jobs running on slaves, on multi-tenant slaves. We did not yet introduce this Linux container isolation in our products. It's something that we are working on, and that all the people who are excited about Docker have in mind when it comes to Jenkins.
Okay, my next question was, can I start implementing Jenkins Operations Center as a monitoring layer for teams that have OSS Jenkins?
So here, you cannot directly connect Jenkins open source to Jenkins Operations Center. There are some features in part of Jenkins Enterprise by CloudBees, some plugins that are required related to security, authentication, and so on. And so the way to do it is you take your Jenkins open source, you add the CloudBees Enterprise plugins. So you don't have to reinstall everything. You just install the CloudBees Enterprise plugins, and then you can connect it to a Jenkins master. And please, before doing such upgrade, such installation on your Jenkins master, open source or other, do a backup of your Jenkins home to be able to revert if something goes wrong. Thank you.
Our next question is about high availability. Someone is asking, what is the purpose of the HA proxy?
Sorry, it's a feature that I did not cover here, but that was part of the slide that we covered in our webinar, Building a Resilient Infrastructure. As part of Jenkins Enterprise by CloudBees, we provide a high availability feature of the master, where you can install, you have an active standby approach on your master, and you can then you have a load balancer in front of this. You have a load balancer in front of your cluster of Jenkins master to do the load balancing. I will find a quick diagram to explain this. In parallel, you can ask me ask the next question so that I can think about it.
The next question was, when builds will run on slaves and Jenkins Operations Center will manage the slaves, what is the point of having a master?
What is the point of having a master when we have?
Well, we have Jenkins Operations Center.
Jenkins Operations Center is just an orchestration layer on. You will have scalability issues. If you have 5,000 jobs on 500 executors, you will have scalability issues using Jenkins Operations Center as a place to orchestrate jobs. So here we recommend to use masters. Masters are here to host jobs, and Operations Center is here to provide the orchestration, the management of the topology of the infrastructure. Even if technically we use some jobs on Jenkins Operations Center, especially we use the backup job, which is part of Jenkins Enterprise. I will finish with the high availability approach that we have in Jenkins Operations Center. So the idea is that you share, you put your Jenkins home on a shared folder, on a network area storage, shared file system, maybe NFS, something like this. You have your cluster of master with one active on one or several standby, and you have a load balancer, HA proxy, or any other in front of it. And of course, you add backups for disaster recovery. So this is our high availability feature, and there is a webinar which covers it, which is called Building Resilient CI Infrastructure. Another question, Tracy, please.
Yes, I guess this will be the last one. It looks like we're running out of time. Is there functionality for pre-flight build, i.e. the build with the local dev changes grabbed from the developer's desktop?
Changes, yeah, okay, so here, the idea of having a job that is run even if you did not yet commit to your central source code repository. And here we have, as part of Jenkins Enterprise by CloudBees, the validated merge plugin, which allows you, which uses the distributed nature of Git to use your Jenkins master as an intermediate Git repository, so that your developers push the source code to this intermediate repository. It runs a build, and if the build is successful, then you have an automated promotion of this changes to the master source code repository. So I guess this could be a solution for your request to have this build that happen before merging the code in the real repository.
All right, so it looks like we are running out of time. I wanted to thank Saru for today's presentation, and also thank Tracy for responding to all the great questions that came in. But especially thank you to all our attendees who spent the time with us today to learn more about Jenkins. For any questions that we didn't get to, we'll send our response in a follow-up email. I will leave the WebEx window open for a few more minutes. So if you have more questions, please go ahead and input it into that Q&A window. We'll capture it and we'll send you a follow-up email with answers to the questions. So thanks again, everybody, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much to all.